And with that pause, Steve is back. Week 2, baby. Steve, we're here. Steve, what a performance by you last week. Talk about a way to come onto the scene, man. Plus 11 units. Let's go.
Yeah, could not have asked for a better week, especially starting out with this adventure that we're on. However, I've been saying that I've only had about 3 to 4 months to prepare for week 1, and now having a week for week 2, I think Vegas is going to be a little more on point and sharp with some of these matchups. So it's going to be very interesting week 2 to see where we stand.
Yeah, man, absolutely. We've both been like griping all week about the fact that we just don't feel as confident. I mean, confident, but these lines get sharp real quick. And there's a big difference between 5 months of prep and 5 days before the big games. So I feel you there, man. And guess what? Our audience, check it out. Steve is on Twitter. We got Steve to get a Twitter. At what is it? At Snorm?
At Snorm. Yep. BohBoHBets at Snorm. That's also my Xbox username too. If anybody wants to get on and play some COD or Battlefield.
There you go. Steve can provide you bets, and he can mess up your world on. Well, I was about to say something else there, Steve, but but I held back. So check Steve out at SNORM or SNORM twice at Snorm on Twitter. BohBoHBets. Steve is going to be grinding out some information there and probably some free picks too along the way as we get him to gain an audience there on Twitter as well. Steve just hasn't been on Twitter before, just like me. I mean, last year, man, I started all the social media stuff, and it's taken a while to get on the scene. But once you prove yourself, that's it. And you're so happy to see you on Twitter, man, so people can just interact with you a little bit more, and so we can go back and forth. But with that, we need to get to these games because, as usual, 32 teams, 16 games, a lot to go through. And another reminder, folks, last week, these underdogs went 12-4 in week 1 with 9 outright winners. And that's probably a big reason why Steve did so well too, because Steve is always looking at the value, which is why I really value him being on the show. And God, a lot of those dogs, man, the dogs were barking. So with Vegas settling these lines and just getting a little bit sharper, we'll see what happens. So let's talk about the first game of the week, which is tomorrow night. Maybe you're listening to this on Thursday, so it's tonight for you. The Giants are 3.5-point dogs, but they're on the road at Washington. Washington's, well, no, it's not their home opener. It's their second game at home. And the total is set at 40.5. So I guess I can start here with this one. I've been back and forth on this one a lot. Steve and I have been talking about this one a lot. I am not high on my Giants whatsoever. The pedestrian offense continues. They scored that late touchdown in the game last week, but really that was garbage time crap. I mean, they really only scored 7 points against the Broncos defense. And, the Broncos defense is going to slow down a lot of teams, but the Giants just don't look good on offense again. Some of that is the offensive line. Some of that is Daniel Jones being so mistake prone and so turnover prone. And then the Washington football team didn't really impress me either. Taylor Heineke did a good job when he came out, but nothing too great. I'm not like terribly impressed by Taylor Heineke. So this is a tough game with two defenses that I think are due for some positive regression. The one thing that has me pausing about taking a side is that the Giants have won 5 straight games against Washington. Obviously, they've had some bad quarterbacks in the past, but I mean, arguably no team looked worse than the Giants last week, in my opinion. They were just bad. But I expect some better defensive effort this week. So I'm not going to go with the total of the full game total at 40.5 because I think there could be some late scoring like last week. But I kind of like the first half under. That's at 20.5 right now. I think this game could start slow. Both the Giants and the football team usually start slow. So if there's more scoring, then it'll be late. So I see the defenses wanting to assert themselves here early. What do you think about this game, Steve?
Well, how crazy is it that in a division matchup, week 2, a backup quarterback's going and getting the points?
Mm-hmm.
You would see. Usually, you would think it'd be the other way around, and I tend to think that's for a reason because Taylor Heineke you can almost argue he has a better resume and has hit higher pinnacles in the NFL than Daniel Jones has, competing in at least one playoff game against Tom Brady Bucks last year. And, that showed that was not by any means an easy game for the Bucks. And Taylor Heineke came in and, showed that he is an NFL caliber quarterback and no stage is too big for him. So I don't think he's going to blink once that it's Thursday night football and he's still at home. So in that regard, I kind of like Taylor Heineke here. When he came into the game to take over for Fitzpatrick, he still threw a touchdown pass. They actually put Washington in a spot to win that game. Unfortunately, that untimely fumble inside their own 10-yard line by Gibson is what ultimately cost them that game. So I don't think losing Fitzpatrick is necessarily going to absolutely hurt Washington, because I still think Taylor Heineke can get it done with them. One big thing is, Giants last week only being held to 60 yards rushing, and Daniel Jones had 20 some of that. So where are you getting these rush yards this week against a stellar defensive front in Washington? And being on the road, I just don't see it. And like you talked about the score of the Giants game, that it looked a lot closer than it was because Denver absolutely dominated that second half. It was close in the first half, but then it got away from them. And then the last quarter touchdown run by Daniel Jones made it look a little more respectful. But I think Washington at home covers Giants 3.5.
Yeah, I like that line a lot more if it was 3, just because it's an NFC East battle. But all great points, and a great point about Saquon in the rushing game too. I mean, I don't understand people who took Saquon top 5 in their fantasy drafts. Do not put Saquon on your fantasy lineup this week. Now, I mean, hey, maybe he'll break out and have 200 yards. But the Giants O-line against the Washington D-line, the Washington front seven is going to be pissed off after last week. I do not like that matchup for Saquon, who's already limited anyway. So let's move on. I could talk about how much the Giants pissed me off all day. But, Bengals at the Bears. The Bears are 2.5-point favorites now. All these lines, by the way, from betonline.ag. Bears 2.5-point favorites at home. Total is at 45. You go first, Steve.
Yeah, what's interesting to me on this one is how much more are we going to see Justin Fields get utilized in these games? He came in against the Rams, ran for a touchdown. It just really depends, taking these types of games, as they go, how much Justin Fields will get on the field. And Andy Dalton is pretty standard, but we look at that Rams game and that opening drive, they drove down on the Rams, and if that interception was a touchdown, that could have been a completely different game, because the Bears were actually kind of in that game more so in the first half, and kind of surprising a lot of people as well. But for me personally, there's just too much unknown in this game. The Bengals' performance last week was stellar, shocked a lot of people, upsetting the Vikings in overtime. Is their offensive line going to be able to hold the Bears rushing attack? That could have just been a first week type of game where they were getting up at home. I'm not sure. I'm going to lean a little bit more to the Bears, but I'm personally myself going to fade this game.
Yeah, my first thoughts were to fade this game as well. It's just kind of an ugly game, in Chicago with a lot of uncertainty. I totally agree about the Justin Fields factor. If he comes into this game, you have to look out for that every single week with the Bears, because if Andy Dalton just stinks the room out of the Soldier Field, why not put in Justin Fields? And then it's a totally different ballgame with a lot more upside on their quarterback. So that's something that made me stay away from this game at first, because I was leaning towards Cincy. But I think that this might be a little bit of an overreaction game as we look at every single one of these games. And there's a lot of home dogs. This isn't a home dog situation, but obviously week 2 is the big overreaction week, and the Bengals played really well last week. I give a lot of credit to Joe Burrow. I like him a lot. They came back in that game. Well, they didn't come back. They let the Vikings come back actually, but they controlled most of that game, and then they got the final drive in overtime. Love the new look Bengals run game with Mixon. They put up a lot of yards last week. They stuck to it. A lot of attempts, right? Less pressure on Joe Burrow. But like you said, Steve, the Bears hung in that game on Sunday Night Football. People, really don't understand that, at least at first, right? I mean, the Rams had an impressive performance, and I think it's obvious that the Bears' defense isn't what it used to be. There's some missing pieces, but they're still a pretty formidable defense. Now, this is their home opener, and the Bengals are coming to town. And the Bengals, starting off 2-0, I don't know. It's still home field advantage. They're only getting, it's -2.5. So Vegas is kind of telling us that it's a pick 'em. I'm not sure if I agree with that. I think there's still plenty more talent on the Bears. Andy Dalton is not great, but he can probably hold his own. I love that you're leaning towards the Bears, Steve. The Bears are probably going to be a play for me. I think at -2.5, I like that a lot. It's going to be a close game, and it feels like it's going to come down to a field goal. So why not? I'm going to probably have a small play on the Bears -2.5. All right, let's move on to the Raiders at the Steelers. This is one I feel very strongly about. Steelers are -5.5, total set at 47. And I love the Steelers this week. This is a classic setup. One of my favorite plays. Raiders, huge spot, Monday Night Football, Eli and Peyton. You righted. Did that game go into overtime? No, it didn't go into overtime. Did it go into overtime?
Yep.
Yes, it did go into overtime.
Yeah,
God, that's a long that game was so insane. I can't even track it in my mind. But big spot in Vegas, first time at home, right? Riding high. John Gruden probably still thinking he's the man, even though his team looked pretty horrible. Just a lot of mistakes, a lot of good offense, but that was mostly Derek Carr making great passes, and it was mostly Darren Waller catching them. Just a lot of clumsiness shown by the Raiders in that first week. I like what they did on their defensive end. They showed out there a lot. But, man, what a spot for the Raiders to now travel across the U.S. all the way to Pittsburgh and to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. We already know that the Steelers are way more formidable at home. Steelers are high on themselves, but Tomlin, great spot for him, motivational spot to keep the guys going. I love the Steelers to cover this number, and I think 5.5 is going to feel a little bit easy here. I think this could be a blowout.
Yeah, I completely agree. Really love the Steelers here. That Raiders game was definitely a roller coaster of emotions. They felt like they won it, then they absolutely felt like they lost it, and then they won it again. It was insane. And I just think coming into Pittsburgh, they're gonna fall off that high now. It's they're playing a team that I feel like shocked everyone by the way they beat the Bills. I would even though I took Steelers last week in one of my picks for a money line play, I was still even shocked the way the Steelers won, because I feel like the Steelers stole one last week. But my biggest questions from them are, where is Najee Harris? I thought we were getting the Steelers running back here to be able to get back to old school Steelers football. Instead, though, it still looked as they're easing him into that standard dink and dunk, quick pass offense. However, I think that type of offense is going to cause trouble for the Raiders. If we look at the Ravens last week, that is something that they could not do. Lamar Jackson was dropping back, and Max Crosby was an absolute animal. What's one way to stop Max Crosby? Get rid of the ball. And I think the slant games with Claypool, quick up the middles to tight ends, seam passes to tight ends, you're going to see a lot of short passes that will expose the Raiders, keep time of possession for the Steelers. And even though the Raiders love being in games to create overs, I actually like the Steelers to cover. And because Steelers control this possession and their defense takes care of Carr, I like the under as well.
Oh, yeah, very good. I like that angle. I haven't really thought about the total in that one. I did give away, here's a free premium pick that I gave away. I like the Raiders team total under 20.5. The Raiders are not going to, I know Darren Waller is a beast. The Raiders are not going to have the same success against the Steelers defense. I'm pretty sure of that. It feels like as close to a lock as there can be. that the Steelers aren't just going to thrive. No such thing as a lock in this game, but Steelers going across the country against that defense, it's going to be different. Love that we're on the same side of that one, Steve. And, I just got to say, this is kind of crazy, isn't it? I mean, I love going over these games. I love doing a podcast about this, Steve. I mean, I got to pinch myself and knock on wood a little bit. It's just, I'm just loving it, man. Like, we're on a podcast talking about football, for God's sake.
You can't beat it.
You can't beat it, man. It's crazy. All right. Texans at the Browns. Browns are 12.5-point favorites. I laugh because that's an insane line on week 2. Total is set at 48. But, Steve, based on our conversations earlier, it sounds like you really like the Browns, huh?
Yes, I absolutely love the Browns. You just look at the last week's matchup, and you see Houston against Jacksonville, and what they're competing for. That is literally an early season matchup to who's getting the first overall draft pick. That's the way I look at that game. And then you see Browns against Kansas City, and that is legitimately a potential to be a divisional playoff round to see who goes to the AFC Championship game. So, like the quote of the greatest Meek Mill, there's levels to this shit. Okay, so that was JV. Now we're varsity. We're at home. We're minus 12.5, and it's a scary big line. And usually, as you're going to see as we go on through going over all the spreads today, I'm going to steer away from a lot of these big lines because they make me unnervous. But it's not a divisional game. It's a team that literally felt like they should have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs on the road in Arrowhead, but shot themselves in the foot too many times. So they're not going to be caught sleeping. They are going to be even more pissed, ready to come out and absolutely take care of a team that, yes, they did beat Jacksonville. They did put up a ton of yards, but I don't think they're going to be ready for the amount of talent that the Browns have. And I really like Baker Mayfield to show out and have the type of game he did last year on the road against the Bengals, where he just out of nowhere threw for 5 touchdown passes and looked like the next big thing. And like we talked about, the Baker Mayfield roller coaster is going to be up and down this year a lot, but this is when I think it's going to be at a high point, and I like the Browns to cover.
Unfortunately, Steve, I'm starting to side with you on this one. It's a huge number, but the more that I've thought about it today too, you're right. I mean, it's a classic setup for the Browns going back home after facing one of the Titans of the NFL. I guess I shouldn't use that term with the actual Titans being a team, but one of the best teams in the NFL easily around the expert table, the number 1 team in the NFL still. And the Chiefs, and they got close, right? And Baker threw a fourth quarter interception again, which is kind of something that he does every now and then. So I won't get into that too much, but it just annoys me because this is a classic game where Baker is going to thrive. He's going to throw all over Houston. He's going to be jumping around the field like he's a good athlete, like he's a great quarterback. You're right, Steve. He's probably going to throw five touchdowns. Maybe, Odell Beckham comes back. Have we heard any news about that?
I don't think Odell is coming back this week again, but I don't know. I think Baker plays better without him. I don't know why.
Right, exactly. And it wouldn't make sense anyway, to push him out there against the Texans. But, yeah, I mean, that was the toilet bowl last week. Good for the Texans. You and I were all over that, Steve. Hit the Texans in our parlays. It was one of our circa picks. It was one of my premium picks. But this is a great setup for the Browns. I will say the Texans are 5-1 ATS in the last 6 games as an underdog. Easy for me to say. But this is just a great setup for the Browns, who are, I mean, this is almost like a college team going against a pro team. The Browns have so many first-round picks. They have so much talent. They're at home. They're comfortable. They're pissed. This, just has the makings of like a 35-10, 35-17 kind of win. So I'm leading to that side too. Not sure if it's going to be a play of mine yet, but unfortunately, I have to agree with you on this one, Steve. All right, the Bills at the Dolphins. Dolphins, 3.5-point underdogs at home. So here we go with these home underdogs again, and the total is 47.5. So this one's me first. The optics in the Bills press conference afterwards did not look good with their loss. on Sunday. And obviously that was a really disappointing loss to the Steelers. And we talked about the Steelers really surging in the fourth quarter. But something that Steve and I were again on last week, everybody's acting surprised now, right? Everybody's like favoring the Steelers. Like, oh yeah, their defense is really good. Well, no shit. It's been good. It's been really good, you know? And you were giving the Steelers 6.5 points on the road. I mean, it's insane. Anyway, you know, now here we go. The Bills are they just seem like they were a little too down on themselves, right? It's only week one. Let's not panic. But that being said, the Dolphins, who are 6-0 ATS in their last 6 home games, 17-5 ATS in their last 22 games as a dog, and they were the best ATS team of any NFL team last year at 11-5. And I like them even more this year to cover spreads, because it just seems like that defense gets better and better. Their secondary is very legit. I think they can give Josh Allen a lot of problems, and this is a divisional game between two storied rivals, and I love that it's in Miami. Steve, I know that you played on a lot of those Florida angles in the past, especially at the beginning of the year. I love the Dolphins' game plan from game to game. They outsmart the other coach. And I like the Dolphins at plus 3.5 to at least keep this game close. If you're giving me the hook with Miami, I'm going to take it. What say you, Steve?
So, yeah, I usually do go with those Florida angles, especially the beginning of the year. I always try to look up the weather and see what it's doing. And believe it or not, next week we're looking in the 80s. So, and I'm kind of like steering away from that Florida angle now. And I really just think that you have the Bills coming off of what I still feel by watching that game. We watch that whole game, and I still feel like the Bills probably should have won that game, but Steelers stood tough, got the right pump block at the right time, and took over. But when you first see this line, it is very suspect, right? Like you would think the Bills, like we have an MVP candidate coming into town, and it's only at 3.5 in Miami. But this isn't the Miami that we've been used to the last 4 or 5 years. Like you said and observed, like their defense is getting better constantly. Look at all their stats you just gave against the spread. But I saw Josh Allen. I think he zones in on this game. He had so many times of deep balls that they were just missing that could have completely opened up that game last week against the Steelers. I think if we fine-tune that, Diggs was only held to 69 yards. It's a pretty okay day, but we've seen him definitely do a lot better than that. I just think that the Bills coming off of that loss, this isn't going to be a trap game like possibly it could have been if they would have won, where I like them to be focused. Josh Allen is 5-1 against Miami all time, and I think they're going to be dialed in. I don't think there's going to be quote unquote Vegas effect being in Miami. I think this team is looking to bigger things in the future, and they're going to go into Miami and cover against their divisional rival, one of their divisional rivals, minus 3.5.
I like it. I like it. Me and Steve on opposite sides in that one. We'll see if we can get to the middle. But Steve, on the Bills, I'm on the Dolphins to cover. Let's move on to the Rams at the Colts. Colts plus 4. This one goes against a lot of my principles again with the home dog, especially with the Colts coming off that game last week where they did not impress. Wentz started to show some things late in that game, but I don't know. I mean, the Colts looked a little confused, looked like they weren't ready for the year. We kind of anticipated that coming into it, but I mean, I love what I saw on the other hand from Matthew Stafford and that Rams offense. And I just think this is a good matchup for the Rams. I mean, we have the Rams, obviously the front seven, their defense is still probably top 5 in the NFL. And they threw all over the Bears. Just like the Colts got exposed last week. I'm on the Rams. I don't want to be on the Rams, Steve, because this goes against my principles of a home dog, especially over 3. But I think the Rams match up really well against the Colts. What do you think?
Oh, I absolutely love the Rams. I mean, just look at the line movement. It opened at 1.5. Now it's at 4. I know Carson Wentz. I know him very well. As an Eagles fan, I tried advocating for him so much, but just watching him against Seattle, I had to cringe. Yes, he is quote unquote healthy, but I still saw the deer in the headlights looks, the drop backs holding onto the ball for way too long. The Rams are the type of team you cannot do this against at all with that defensive line. Say you do work around it and you do move up in the pocket and you do scramble and then you're making rush throws. Their secondary is not a team you want to be making ill-advised throws to. And I still see that with Carson Wentz. And I don't think this whole narrative is that, oh, he's with Frank Reich now, everything's going to be better to his MVP form. I don't think Carson Wentz will ever be back to that MVP form that we saw in the 2017 season. I really believe we saw what Carson Wentz was. It was 4th and 1, and he botched the snap against Seattle. He closed his hands. He couldn't even get the ball. That means he can't handle the pressure. How can you not handle the pressure in an NFL game week 1? Week 2, now you have the Rams defense with Aaron Donald coming at you. Good luck. Rams cover -4.
Yeah, I like that we're on the same side, and I love your perspective with that one, Steve's spoken like a true Eagles fan. He's been through some shit with Carson Wentz. Definitely, man. Great point about holding on to the ball too long against the Rams defensive front. And another thing I forgot to point out is, Seattle ran all over the Colts last week. Was not impressed by the Rams run game. But if the Rams run game picks up against the Colts, who showed a lot of flaws in their run defense, that's another side where we have to say good luck. Because if the Rams can open up their playbook, play action pass, which Sean McVay loves to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had Stafford to take over that game last week, but and the run game was not that effective. They have an effective run game against the Colts. The Colts don't shore that up. Yikes. All right, the reason why I talked about that last game first, even though I wasn't supposed to, it wasn't my turn. But this one needs to go to you, Steve, because I'm talking about now the 49ers at Steve's Philadelphia Eagles at the link. Is that still what they call it?
Yeah, the link.
The link. Another home dog, Eagles plus 3.5, total 50.5. Steve, on to you.
So, yeah, I mean, I cannot be more excited about this Eagles team from a fan perspective. You and I were all over them last week, had them in our circa, had them on a money line play, had them in a parlay money line covering. Loved it. Absolutely dominated the Falcons. They looked really good. Nick Sirianni, he coached an okay game, and that's what I want to get into because I like how the Eagles have a ton of upside with a lot of young potential. But now we're playing a real proven team with a coach that's already gotten to a Super Bowl with almost a very similar squad that they have right now. And I really look at this game from a coaching perspective. I think Nick Sirianni is going to go through a lot of growing pains coaching. We saw against the Falcons some boneheaded 4th down play calling where he left points on the field, running a rookie running back up the middle on 4th and 2 when you're in field goal range. And that was still when the game was very close. You cannot get away with this type of stuff in these type of games now, going against a defense and a team as solid as San Francisco. I really think what's going to happen in this game is the coach for the Eagles, Nick Sirianni, is going to get a little too cute to try to show that he's the next young up-and-comer and outthink himself and leave points on the field, go for it on 4th down, ill-advised when they shouldn't, maybe even try to do the old Doug Peterson stuff. Oh, let's not kick an extra point. Let's go for 2. If that's the type of game that we're going to get into this early, this young, this inexperienced against a veteran team that's going to be able to scheme against you, I'm not sure I like this 3.5. The Eagles are a good story. They're flashy. Jalen Hurts looks really good. However, I just like San Francisco to cover 3.5 at home. That's what I'm taking. I hope I'm wrong, though, as a fan.
At least one way you'll win, I guess, right? I think the point you made about Sirianni just trying to kind of outsmart himself a little bit is really sharp, Steve. I like what you said there because what we have now is a narrative. I'm hearing a lot of people talk very highly about the Eagles, and that scares me a little bit to bet on them. Only because going into the season, right, they went to Atlanta an unproven team, a team that cannot cover to save their life, a team that can't win at the end of games to save their life. And for some reason, Vegas and the books thought that the Eagles were not going to have a good year. I mean, they didn't end the season well last year, but so I guess the proof was there. But they weren't very high in the Eagles. We took advantage. But the Eagles were 3.5-point dogs to the Falcons last week. And now you're telling me it's 1 week later and the Eagles are at home and they're still 3.5-point dogs to the Niners? Now, I know the Eagles are at home, and I want to take the Eagles. Why? Because it was fun last week, proving people wrong. So I have some good experience with the Eagles now, which is not very often for me. But, there you go. As a Giants fan, I have to look for what I can find. But now we got another home dog, so I want to take the Eagles, but everyone is sort of very high in the Eagles. The Falcons hung around for like the first quarter. They had a lot of confidence. And what makes me think positively about the Eagles is that it felt like last week was one of those games where we're watching two teams who are full of fire at the beginning of the game, and then the better team just started taking over. That's what it felt like. It felt like the Eagles were in a different class than the Falcons. And the Eagles controlled the line of scrimmage like they thought they would. Not sure if they can do that this week against the 49ers. I don't like that the 49ers let the Lions come back last week. And the 49ers had a lot of issues getting to the Lions, getting past that offensive line, which is probably one of the best in the NFL now. It's one thing that the Lions do have. Mm-hmm. But I think that the Niners defense could experience some positive regression this week against an Eagles offensive line that's good. Not sure if it's as good as Detroit's offensive line, though. And, San Francisco, that could have been sort of a letdown spot in the first week. Trey Lance got in there and scored a little touchdown. It felt like the 49ers were playing with their food a little bit. And I also kind of like the over in this game because I think Jalen Hurts is going to get his. I think San Francisco is going to be just as creative as ever. Steve, I thought you were going to want to go with Philly on this one, but I'm glad you said what you said. I do think that the 49ers are the right side, going against my principles again, going against home dogs again. But I do think that the Eagles could win this game if they run as effectively as they did last week. 173 yards on the ground, but again, all things relative. That's against the Atlanta Falcons. So I really don't know what to take from that. I do know that the 49ers are a very complete team. They're one of my Super Bowl contenders. So I also side with you. I'm on the Niners -3.5, leaning it for now, but I think it's going to be a play of mine. Probably won't be a circuit play. All right, Broncos -6 at the Jags, another home dog, and another one that scares me a little bit, Steve, because I want to take the Broncos. I shared something with Steve yesterday that I saw on like Instagram or Twitter or whatever, and it was Von Miller talking with Teddy Bridgewater after the game, talking about the speech he made as a leader. Teddy Bridgewater as a person and as a leader, he's great, and he's a covering machine. But he's usually a covering machine because he's on teams that are underdogs. Now the Broncos are 6-point favorites on the road. And Jacksonville looked horrible. They looked confused. And Trevor Lawrence has some good moments, but he has some really bad mistakes too. Did not look like Urban Meyer prepared his team well. And how much can we say about the Broncos, though, after facing the Giants? I mean, I really think, genuinely, not just because I'm a fan, that the Giants looked like the worst team in the NFL last week. And so the Broncos dominated them. Well, I mean, slow clap, I guess. But the pro better me, Steve, wants to take Jacksonville here, but there's just too much unproven. I'm probably going to stay away from this game. I think I was really bullish on the Broncos at first, but it's kind of scaring me away. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm taking the Broncos. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I already alluded to where I think they are playing for the number 1 draft pick. Okay, you've been saying, the Giants aren't a good football team. But on paper, they have to be better than the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they went into New York and absolutely dismantled them. So I don't see why there isn't a reason that Broncos defense can't do the same. Is Trevor Lawrence a good quarterback? Can he be? I think he has great upside and potential. Does he have the talent around him right now to be, though? I don't think so. Okay. Is Urban Meyer an actual NFL coach? That is yet to be seen. This is a guy that was able to just be at colleges, major colleges, and just throw money at all of these players and say, come play for me, and could just easily get the best talent. Well, guess what now, Urban? You have to actually draft and trade for the best talent. You can't buy it. All your players are rich now. So I don't know if he's actually an NFL caliber coach to be able to go against these teams, scheme against these teams, and make up for not having the talent, because Urban Meyer has always just had all the talent. I like the Broncos to go into Jacksonville, show why Jacksonville is going to be competing for that first overall draft pick this year with that stellar defense. And Teddy Bridgewater, like it or not, 22-3 against the spread. You made a good point that they're usually dogs, but I still like those numbers because he's still hanging around in games, and I'm going to take him to get the 6 and cover it.
Teddy covers. Teddy covers. All right. Patriots at the Jets. Jets are 6-point underdogs at home. Totals at 42.
Patriots at the Jets. Unbelievable that we have 2 rookie quarterbacks, and it's a 6-point spread with both of them being 0-1. So Mac Jones went 29-39, 281 yards, 1 touchdown pass with a long pass of 26 yards. All right, not bad. Zach Wilson, 20 for 37, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, long pass of 40 yards. All right. So why do we have a 6-point spread here? It all comes down to one thing, and I think one thing only: the defense and the Belichick scheming. However, I think we're looking at the Jets of old, the Jets that are going to butt fumble against the Patriots with Brady. I think we got to move on to, this is a new generation. This is a new Jets team, a new organization. I like Zach Wilson. I like that he's mobile. I like that he's not afraid. He still went on the road week 1 and competed against a Panthers team that has a lot of talent. They do have talent, but he didn't clam up. A lot of people thought he was going to be the guy out of all the quarterbacks that were going to come in and just clam up and not be good at all. But he was not afraid to throw the ball. I like the Jets this week. I like them to cover 6 points against another rookie quarterback. Until you're proven to me that you are able to actually win in this league, I'm going to always take against you. So I want the points. I want the points at home. I think the Jets cover.
Totally agree with everything you said. I'm so happy you said that, Steve. I thought we might be on opposite sides in this one. But I like the Jets at home, man. +6 is their home opener. Robert Saleh is a motivational guy. I think he'll get them all fired up. Jets almost came back against the Panthers last week. Like you said, he did not clam up. Zach Wilson did not, clam up under pressure, show those nerves. I mean, the mental fortitude of these guys is a huge thing. You saw that happen with Joe Burrow when they were down, or when the Vikings came back and tied it up. I feel the same thing with Zach Wilson. Just the fact that he looks like he's in 8th grade doesn't mean that he plays like it. And he's got some good nerves on him. I like their defensive effort in the second half. The Panthers only scored 3 points in the second half last week. They did all their scoring in the first half. So that's really impressive. I don't like that Mekhi Becton went down. I think it's at least 4 to 6 weeks. It looked like it could have been a lot worse, so it's actually good news. But I don't like that he's not going to be in this game. But Zach Wilson, like you said, he looked better as the game went on, looked more confident. And the stat that's out there about Bill Belichick against rookie quarterbacks, I get it, but that's not ATS. The ATS record is closer to 50%. He's 20-6 straight up against a rookie quarterback. But this is +6. Jets are at home. It is still a good AFC East rivalry. And I totally agree, Steve. I mean, you took the words from my mouth. I think we have to stop looking at the Jets as the Jets of old. I think the Jets are still not a great football team, but I think they're going to be more competitive this year. I like what I saw from their defense last week. I like what I saw from Zach Wilson. I'm taking the points too. Sounds like that could be a circuit bet for us, Steve. Okay, let's move on. Vikings at the Cardinals. Cardinals -4.5. Total set at 51. First reaction to this game, Steve, it's kind of ugly. I kind of hate it. There's a lot of hype on Arizona right now. I'm seeing them in a lot of power rankings, like top 10, even top 5 in some of them. They played really well, no doubt about it. Right? They walked into Tennessee and they dominated that game. it's clear that Jonnu Smith being gone from Tennessee made a big difference. Great blocking tight end, and they could not block the Arizona front seven. J.J. Watt looked good. I'm not very high on him right now in his career, but if he's there with other studs, he's going to be pretty damn good, right? He's going to be still way better than most defensive players. Arizona exposed the Titans quickly, and this is the thing that I don't like about this game for the Vikings. Again, I kind of want to take the Vikings as a dog. I kind of want to give in to the overreaction and be like, hey, maybe the Vikings aren't that bad. Maybe the Cardinals aren't that good. But this is just another bad matchup for the Vikings because I think the Cardinals, this is how they're going to run their offense. Kyler Murray is explosive. We saw him do it last year. He's healthy. He looks fantastic. I think they can gain a lead early in this again. And Kirk Cousins on the road, if another team has a lead on him, the game's going to be put on his shoulders. It's going to take away from their game plan. And I hate that for the Vikings. I don't see the Vikings defense, based on everything I saw last week, being able to stop the Cardinals on offense this week. I don't think that's a fluke. I think the Cardinals offense is going to be very formidable all year. So I'm getting more and more, I'm starting to like the Cardinals more and more at -4.5. I think it's actually a pretty decent line.
Yeah, Kyler Murray was absolutely electric last week, but one person who I thought even stole the show over him was Chandler Jones. He was an absolute beast. 6 tackles, 5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. I mean, those are just godly numbers. And then, like you said, you combine that with the likes of a veteran of J.J. Watt. Like, good luck if they can continue that kind of success. Now, is 5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles going to be a standard? No, we know that. But the fact that you have players on your team that are able to produce that type of those type of stats and plays, that's huge. And we're looking at this Vikings team. If you think about it with the Titans, they kind of match up about the same. You know, they have a dominant top running back, and they have nice, solid outside wide receivers, some absolute stubs in Justin Jefferson, you know, A.J. Brown and the Titans, and Julio, and about some serviceable quarterbacks with Tannehill and Kirk Cousins. So it's almost like it's from a defense and offensive position standpoint. It's almost like it's the same matchup. Realistically, I'm actually though fading the line, the spread though. I'm gonna actually take the over in this game because this is a type of game that I can see Kirk Cousins coming out and getting into a shootout where he goes off. He's so up and down. Kyler Murray is going to get his. He's going to have, 2 touchdown passes, maybe a rushing touchdown. He's going to score. The Arizona Cardinals are going to score, and I think the Vikings are going to try to match and stick with it. I just don't know, is it going to get in a shootout competition to the point where Arizona's up by 7 and that's how the game ends, or do they just hit a field goal and then Vikings cover that way? I do like the Cardinals, however, to win. I'm fading the spread. I'm taking the over 51.5.
Yeah, I think that's a good look. Short-term memory has me a little scared about the over just because of the way that the Arizona defense stepped up last week. And I thought that game was going to go over. I think it stopped at like 50 or 51. So we were like 1 point away from that one going over. So just, bad recent memory for me, but I like that angle on the total. Let's go to the Falcons and the Bucks. Bucks 12.5-point favorites. Total is 52, and I'm very curious to see if we align on this one, Steve.
Yeah, this is another massive spread, and it's a division game, and that scares me. These division games early in the year, anything can still happen. I understand we saw the Falcons completely look very, very terrible against Philly, not really producing a lot on offense, but let's just look back at like the first quarter where they came in, they were driving the ball, and they had 2 drives stall out inside the 5-yard line. And they settled for field goals there. Was that maybe some rookie coach nerves, maybe just being a little conservative week 1? We take those types of drives, and now we're playing against Tom Brady and your 12.5-point dogs. Aren't you going for it now on 4th down here? And now this tide can change a little bit in games like this. The Eagles showed they had a pretty formidable, good defense. Is their defense better than Tampa Bay? I wouldn't say so, but with Sean Murphy Bunting being out now and Tampa Bay just giving up, 29 points to the Cowboys, yet to be seen. So from that perspective, I'm personally going to totally lay off and fade this game. I actually do lean the Falcons, but this is one of those games where I think it's more of a hero call, that if I come out and say I'm taking the Falcons plus 12.5, everybody's going to be like, well, that's the dumbest thing come Monday when the score was 50-3. So I just think it just seems too easy to want to take the Bucks. It does. It just seems so easy. Yeah, the Bucks are going to come in. The Falcons are going to go into Tampa and just absolutely get blown out. I just think it's too easy, and it doesn't sit right with me. I'm personally fading the game altogether. I'm going to lean, though, on the Falcons 12.5.
Okay, I love it, Steve. I thought you were going to be a little more bullish on this one, and I am actually going to be pretty bullish on this one. In fact, drum roll, whatever you guys want to do on the other end, my big balls play of the week.
Oh,
The Falcons are plus 515 right now, at least on the Bet Online. I'm going to put a unit on the Falcons winning this game, and here's why. How many times in the past have we seen the Falcons go toe-to-toe and go be really competitive in these high-scoring games with a divisional opponent? We saw it a lot with the Saints. We saw it in recent history with the Bucks. Now, I know Matt Ryan doesn't have all the weapons that he used to have. He still has plenty of weapons, okay? Their rookie tight end, whose name escapes me right now because information overload, he didn't do much last week, but this is a divisional NFC South game. I think you're totally right with what you said about Arthur Smith and that Atlanta offense, man. I think, Arthur Smith was visibly upset, visibly frustrated last week. He took it all on himself, which I like in a coach. He's like, hey, that's my bad. These guys weren't prepared enough. And I think he's going to really go for it this week. I know it's on the road. I wish that it was at home. That'd be even sweeter. But the reason why we're getting this big of a line is because it's on the road. In addition to the fact that the Bucks are the Super Bowl champs. But this is just a classic clash between two division rivals where anybody can win. And I ain't hearing anybody talk about how the Bucks almost lost to the Cowboys last week. I mean, that was close. Mm-hmm. And the Cowboys, in my opinion, are not a great football team. I think the Cowboys have a great offense. But, the championship belt is tough to wear. It's tough to wear that throughout the season. Everyone has a bullseye on you. And now the Falcons get to go and face the Super Bowl champs, probably with less expectations. So why not play with the killer instinct and go for it? I love the Falcons plus 12.5. If the Bucks end up winning 42-3, whatever. But I think the Falcons can really compete. They have a lot of young talent on defense. I think the Eagles are better than we think too. But I think that the Falcons just kind of gave up because I think the game plan kind of crumbled and they just didn't know what to do from there. I think Arthur Smith will have them much more prepared this week. I don't like that the Bucks get 3 or 4 extra days to prep, but I think the Bucks are feeling awfully fat and sassy right now, and they might come back down to earth.
Can I just? I'm sorry. Can I just make a point to that game? Yeah. Also, just this week, you might have saw on Instagram the funny video of Tom, talking about getting ready for this week, and the troll in the background of the 3:28 time on the computer. Yes. The Falcons have bulletin material. I mean, Matt Ryan, this constant trolling, of that Super Bowl, he has to have some sort of fire, with his team. If he's any sort of veteran leader quarterback going into this week to, I'm glad you're bullish enough to want to play a money line on it. I love that. Love the value. But to at least try to compete and keep this close against a divisional opponent, that's why I really am leaning, more towards the Falcons there. We will find out.
I think about it this way, the score could be 30-10 in the fourth quarter, right? And we could still have a shot at covering this. I mean that's how huge of a line this is. Mm-hmm. So, Falcons, not a good team. I don't think they're going to do much this year, but I think this is a big spot, right? Teams tend to play over their heads. Look at the Texans last week. Everyone, why the hell were the Jaguars, 3.5 point, 4 point favorites going on the road? That was insane. This line makes sense, but I can see the Falcons really, really playing over their head. All right, let's go to the Titans and the Seahawks. Titans at the Seahawks. Seahawks 5-point favorites, total 54. Man, oh man. I was worried about this Titans team, and I guess we saw why in that first week. But their offense looked pretty pedestrian once the Cardinals took an early lead because they couldn't just feed Derrick Henry. They had to turn to Tannehill. They had to turn to the passing game. There's not good news coming out of Tennessee. People, the team was already telling Julio Jones to shut up. Apparently, he's talking too much. I don't like their signings on defense. Jack Rabbit, Janoris Jenkins has not been great for a long time now. I saw that on the Giants. We saw that kind of on the Saints. He's been a globetrotter now for a little bit, and I just, I don't really think that he can hold his own. And the Seattle Seahawks put on a show last week at Indy. One of those plays that Steve and I were really kicking ourselves about because we're like, why the hell didn't we choose the Seahawks? We saw all the angles before that. 5 points is tough for me because again, it's just creeping up on me, the narratives. Maybe this is a little bit of an overreaction. Maybe the Seahawks are going to do the same thing they always do, is look electric in some spots and then let you down in other spots. But the crowd is back in Seattle. That's going to make a huge difference. I do not like what I saw from the Titans. So right now I'm going to lean Seattle -5 just because I think it's another bad matchup for Tennessee. I think Seattle can get ahead early, keep on giving the ball to Russ, let Russ cook, and you see how he can take over the damn game. For me, one of the best quarterbacks of all time that just hasn't won enough championships. So I'm leaning to the Seahawks. I also lean towards the over, but again, like last week, the Titans scared me because they were just inept at the end of that game to come back.
Yeah, I agree. I'm leaning Seattle as well. I do like early season Russell Wilson. He never disappoints. He's MVP form. It's when we get a little later into the season when he's been hit 1,000 times that we start to see it take effect on him. But right now, I really like how he went into Indiana and performed. Tyler Lockett was awesome. Those deep passes, also getting Metcalf involved as well, and Chris Carson. But the one thing that sticks out to me is a Mike Vrabel coach team is tough. And I'm just, scared that the 5 points, those are those tough lines, those 5 points that you feel could go either way, right? And the Titans, they're a formidable team. They're a playoff caliber team. I think they could still bounce back this week, even going into Seattle and compete, get the run game going. And then we have the Titans that we were expecting week 1. So it is maybe possibly a little bit overreaction to fade the Titans completely right now because they are definitely have a lot of talent, formidable team that can put points on the board. Being out in Seattle is scary, though. We know that stadium is hard. Those fans are going to be back. It's going to be their home opener. It's going to be absolutely rocking. And Russell Wilson, like I said, hasn't been hit 1,000 times yet. So I'm leaning Seattle, but I'm still waiting to watch the line movement on this game before Sunday.
Yeah, Russell Wilson, I think he was sacked 3 or 4 times last week too. I mean, he just like all time, the kind of hits and sacks that he gets, the kind of like the lack of good performances that he gets from his offensive line, and he still balls out. It's just it's just unreal to me. All right, let's go to the Cowboys and the Chargers. Chargers 3-point favorites at home. Total is 55.5. And Steve, we just learned that DeMarcus Lawrence broke his foot. Arguably the most important part of that Cowboys defense there with Van Der Esch. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so with my write-up in this, I was actually talking to the Cowboys that we saw their performance, and even though they gave up a good amount of points, that I still feel their defense was strides better than last year. But now losing DeMarcus Lawrence, that's going to hurt them a lot. However, regardless of that, LA is still led by a young quarterback. I think Dak is on a mission to show that he is ready to take the next level. He puts up the numbers we saw last week against the Tampa Bay Bucks, 42 of 58, 403 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Just insane stats by Dak. And when everyone has so many question marks on his health status, he looked fine. I was really interested to see in that game that they were throwing it as much as they did. I'm wondering if the Cowboys are going to get the run game a little more involved this time. I don't know if they specifically just catered that way because they knew they were going against Brady and they needed to be a high-powered offense to get as many points as they can. On the other side, Herbert, he's the real deal. They have a great receiving core. He can throw the ball. He slings it downfield. He is not afraid at all. But in LA, is this going to be a home game for the Chargers? Realistically, I'm not going to be surprised if half that stadium's Cowboys fans. They come out of the woodwork. They come out from everywhere, especially in California. There's a ton of them. I think the Dallas is still going to feel comfortable being on the road in LA. They did all of their camp out in California. This is not going to be anything new to them being out there. Last season, they went into against the Rams. They were 3-point dogs, and they pushed 3 points. I think in SoFi, the Cowboys are my pick still, even with DeMarcus Lawrence going down. I like them to cover, and I like them on the money line as well with 1 unit.
You say Cowboys, right?
Cowboys, yep.
Cowboys. Whoa. Okay, that's hitting me from left field. I didn't think you'd be on that side, Steve. Interesting. So I like everything you said. I'm not going to really add much more to it because I think you said it all. I mean, Herbert is an absolutely elite quarterback to me at this point. And he sliced and diced the Washington defense. You know, maybe some of his stats don't show that, but every big throw he had to make under pressure, precision throws, tough throws, you know, long downs to complete. The guy doesn't get shaken. You know, if you want to, there's like a funny thing online that says, I mean, if you want someone to defuse a bomb, then maybe you're going to choose Justin Herbert. I mean, he's got the nerves for it. The guy doesn't show any kind of panic. Love his arm. I just love this game going over. I like what you said about Dak. I totally agree that Dallas offense is legit. They're very talented, especially with Dak back at the helm. And I do not think that the Cowboys are going to be able to stop the Chargers either. I think we saw about as much as the Chargers are going to be stopped last week against the Washington defense, who's pretty damn good and probably play to their potential. But I see the Chargers having a lot more success on offense this time around. Although I was impressed by the Chargers defense, I don't think it's going to make its mark this week against Dallas. I like the total over. And initially, that's interesting because I gave 55 as a play to my premium customers on the under, just because the number itself is so huge. It's just like I kind of feel like I have to take the under, but I don't like it. I think this is a great teaser piece. You can get this down to 48.5. These two offenses are not going to be able to be stopped. That's just my take. Sunday night game, Chiefs at the Ravens. Ravens plus 3.5. Total, again, 55 or 55.5, depending on what book you're at. So I'll go first on this one. Did not like what I saw from the Ravens on Monday night. You know, I'm watching this Monday night game, and I'm hearing some snarky comments online from people who are like, oh, see, told you, you know, Ravens are going to march into, you know, Vegas. They're going to win. And I just, even when they were winning, on offense, I just wasn't that impressed. You know, the Ravens have some depth on defense, but now their secondary just took a real hit with Marcus Peters gone out of the game. And then who's their other cornerback? He got taken out of the game at some point too. So you got real lack of depth at cornerback and in their secondary now, and they got exposed routinely throughout that game. Could not stop Darren Waller. And I think their offense is just really limited right now. I think defenses are starting to figure out Lamar, you know, run. That's fine, but that's going to catch up to you eventually. And we saw it. He was not secure with the ball. He was throwing errant passes. I like Lamar Jackson so much as a person, and I want to pick the Ravens because, listen, home opener in Baltimore. We live in Baltimore, Steve. We know that house is going to be rocking. I really want to take the Ravens here, but I'm going to go against that, and I'm going to take the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are going to cover this line. I think the Chiefs are an even better team this year in a lot of ways, and I think the Ravens are a little worse. And I know this is a contentious battle. They're at home. You know, again, my mind wants to take the Ravens just because of the number. We're getting the hook. I think the Chiefs could blow out the Ravens.
I was all originally when I saw this line, my first instinct was, wow, Ravens are getting +3.5 at home with one of the best kickers in the league. That place is going to be electric. It's going to be Sunday Night Football. I'm taking Lamar Jackson, putting the team on the back and covering, if not maybe even squeaking a win against the Chiefs. Completely threw that out of the window. Think about the Chiefs. They had so much adversity last week, and they still just come back, stay calm, and take care of business. They are through and through a professional football team that knows how to win. Look at the Ravens, 14-0 lead, and absolutely crumbled. Could not hold on to the ball, got exposed. Lamar cannot make the throws that once he has that pressure. There was so much holding in that game. I was getting so frustrated. Crosby was getting held so many times on the drop back that they weren't calling. Finally, in the second half, they started calling it more. I think that the Chiefs come into Baltimore, and this is the foe of the Ravens. This is the one thorn in the side that they can never figure out to beat. And I think that trend continues. I like the Chiefs to cover the 3.5.
Wow, I can't believe we're on the same side of that one, Steve. Is that a circuit play for us?
Oh, that was definitely going to be a circuit play.
It might have to be, right? I mean, it just, all the rules are there in betting to get the home dog, and the Ravens are such a complete team usually, but I just don't see it this year. I just don't feel it for that. So I love that we're on the same side. Steve, thanks for reminding me. We missed the game. The Saints and the Panthers. Panthers at home is 3.5-point dogs right now. It was up to 5.5 or 4.5 at least, I believe, at the start of the week. Now we're hearing some COVID scares from the Saints, some offensive coaches got COVID, some COVID protocol going on, and a bunch of injuries on defense too. Starting to get a little concerned for the Saints side. But if you like the Saints, maybe you take it now because if as the week goes on, if we find out that COVID is not an issue and that these players resting are not going to be out of the game, then I guess you would want to favor the Saints at a short line against the Panthers, especially after they looked last week. I mean, Jameis Winston, good job getting LASIK surgery, man, because you look pretty damn good. After that, you finally see on the field. And is Jameis Winston going to do that every week? I don't know. But right now, I want to lean to the Panthers, but I don't want to take this line yet because with all the uncertainty up in there about what's going on with COVID.
So are the Saints this good, or are the Packers, did they just display a game that bad? I mean, Aaron Rodgers is in history the worst reigning MVP. He put on the worst performance for week 1 as a starting quarterback. Jameis Winston, 14-20, 148 yards, all the 5 touchdown passes. That's great. However, now there was no pressure on Jameis Winston media perspectively. Now we're expecting him to win. Is he going to be able to continue to win? That's my big question right now. I've seen Jameis Winston in the past throw for 5 touchdowns against my Eagles, dominate, look great. Following week, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, got his team 12 points. I need to see more consistency until I'm ready to put my money on Jameis Winston as a favorite. Because of that, it's still a division rival game. The inconsistencies of Jameis Winston, a lot of unknown. I'm still going to feel more comfortable putting my money on Carolina at home +3.5.
Yeah, I like your thoughts there, Steve. I guess, the thing that scares me is one member of the Saints that we do know is going to be consistent is Sean Payton. And I really do think he's going to put Jameis Winston in much better positions than he was in with Tampa. And you know what I'm also kind of bullish about? And I don't know if this is, people are really getting on Team Jameis right now, because of the funny post-game interview and everything. But I really think he's kind of Jameis 2.0. I mean, I think there's some differences. He looks more athletic. He's moving better. Maybe he needed the humility of being behind Drew there. But if all things are okay with COVID and everything else, I'm probably going to be on the same side at -3.5 still. Just because I think the Panthers have a lot to prove too. I mean, Sam Darnold looked okay, but he didn't blow me out of the water, against his own against his old team, against a defense that's pretty, I mean, historically has not been good at all. And maybe the Jets are better. But I tend to side with Sean Payne in a lot of these situations. We'll see what happens there. Looks like Steve and I on opposite sides. Let's wrap this one up. We're going over an hour on this one. There's a lot to talk about. Lions at the Packers on Monday Night Football. I'll be really short with my position on this one, Steve. I mean, Packers are 11-point favorites. Total is 48, and all I have to say is ill. I think I'm staying away from this game, man. Like I can't stand the way that Aaron Rodgers approached the offseason. He annoys the shit out of me, and I think his team has taken on his personality. Like not only kind of not giving a shit, but also then like being real cool and calm and collected afterwards. Like still just a little too apathetic for me. And the Lions covered last week. I mean, if you had 8.5 on the Niners, the Lions covered, and now we get 11 with the Packers. I think the Lions could cover again, but there's just too much unknown. Packers are at home. Lord knows Aaron Rodgers could ball out. I don't really know what to think about this game, man. I'll be honest. What do you think?
That's exactly. I literally have fade in capital letters. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, you have Aaron Rodgers who had one of the worst games of his career last week. Is this going to be a thing? Is this going to be like the relax and now he comes out and balls out? And that's yet to be seen. We need to kind of see what this Packers team is going to be, what type of mentality they have going forward. The Lions, they just seem, and I hate to use the word, but that gritty type of team. They maybe are buying into what their coach is feeding them with all the off-season theatrics that he said. But, Jared Goff threw the ball 50-some plus times, a lot of them to the running backs out of the backfield. They did not let off the gas pedal. They got a lot of garbage time points, but there was a team that didn't just curl up and say, okay, we lost, we suck. They're a team that is scary for those backdoor covers. And being that it's 11 points, I'm going to stay away from that as well because too much unknown in this game. Monday Night Football, I'd rather just like to enjoy watching the Manning brothers talk about.
That needs to be said. That was one hell of a presentation by them.
Absolutely.
Dude, I was loving that. I was loving when they were geeking out too, because I mean they're able to point things out that you would just never hear from anyone else.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, with that, we need to wrap this up because we're going on a long time. But Steve, I need your big balls bet and your favorite teaser.
My big balls bet. I like the Jets money line. Look to play the value there. I'm only going to put 1 unit on that. However, I am going to take it even a step further, and I got to double it up. I got to go with a Jets money line and a parlay with the Panthers money line. Let's run 2 money line parlays back-to-back weeks. Hit the Eagles and Steelers last week. Let's go Jets and Panthers.
Man, if only you added the Texans to that one last week, Steve, that would have been really insane. But I love how you always go with 2 dogs. So we know what my big balls play is. It's the Falcons straight up. You can get that at over plus 500 now. And what about your teaser, Steve?
Oh, my teaser at 7.5 points. I'm going to take the Steelers, the Broncos, and the Rams with 4 units on that.
Yeah, I love that. Man, I keep on going back and forth on my teasers, I'll be honest, but I really like the Chargers and Cowboys over to get teased down. So that would be about a 48.5. And I think right now I would take the Dolphins in a tough fight with the Bills, AFC East. The Dolphins just cover, man. And if you're giving me 7 more points, why not combine the Dolphins plus 10.5 so you get over 10, which is a key number. And then you bring down the Chargers and the boys, which I think there's just going to be a ton of offense there. And if they only have to get to 50, why not? I also kind of like a Thursday night football teaser. Tease up the Washington football team to 3.5. Trust me, the Giants don't cover, and the Giants are not favored in this game. So now you're telling me that the Giants are going to win by more than 3.5 points. I really love that angle. And then you could also tease the under at 47.5 in a game that should be very defensive. So a few options there. Steve, thanks for this roundup, man. We went a long time, but it's necessary. There's a lot of shit to talk about. And as we move forward with laying the points with FarleyBets, we'll probably have shorter podcasts because there'll be a few teams on a bye. But until next week, everybody, let's win some damn bets. Let's get those big bowls bets to win as well. And our teasers. And Steve, we out of here. Let's go.
Let's fucking go.